Hi everybody, this is a tutorial on how to use splines in Maya to create complex curves, and I wanted to create this jet engine, this 737 jet engine. Okay, let's get going here. Here's some reference images. So there's an isometric view, here's a front, there's a side. I'm going to quickly load those into my front and side views. Alright, there's front. And there's side. Okay, first thing I need to do is scale these images so that they're exactly the same size or very close to. What I don't want to do is start modeling splines on one view and have them not match up. That would be a really frustrating experience. So let's kind of just make sure that we've got kind of apples to apples here. So the trick I do when I'm making these things, let's turn off that grid. I'm just going to look at the top of the engine in this picture, kind of roughly there, and there's the bottom, and then look at the bottom there, and just kind of line it up like that. It's not a perfect science, but anybody that models to 3 views knows that it will never be a perfect science. And these two pictures are not even of the same airplane. It might not even be the same jet engine. So I'm going to be exercising artistic license and just getting the job done. Okay, so the opening of the jet engine, I'm looking at right here and right here, roughly the same, and then the bottom and the top maybe a little bit smaller. Okay, if I have to make adjustments later I will, but for now let's just tuck these things off the side there, and then when I go to my front view, there's my front, and then when I go to my side, there's my side. Okay, so step one, let's go back to my front. I'm going to come up here to Polygons, this tab. I want to go to Surfaces because I'm going to be creating a CV curve tool. Alright, and let's go to Options on the CV curve tool, and let's make sure that we're using 1 linear as opposed to 3 cubic. Okay, and I don't want multiple end knots, so I'm going to turn that off. And I'll explain why in a sec. So let's come in here, I can close those options there, and I'm going to click on the highest point forward, and I don't know if you can see, I'll scoot this out of the way. I'm going to be clicking where this kind of specular reflection is, right here on the bottom lip, and I'm just going to be guesstimating where the forward lip of this jet engine is. Okay, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that very clearly. So let's come over, create curve tool. I think the settings are still the same. Yeah, 1 linear and turn off multiple end knots. Now, every time I click, that is going to be determining where the edge loops are going to be when I loft these splines the length of this jet engine. So I'm determining the density, and I'm deliberately not going to click close to it. I'm going to kind of go off there, and I'll hit W for the move tool, go to control vertex, select that. Now I'm holding the V key down, see how the icon changes, and then snap to the closest vertice. Okay, let's go back to object mode. I've got the spline selected, and then I come up here to edit curves, and I want to close this curve. Okay, so now I have a nicely clean curve. I'll scoot over here so you can see it. And because I used the options here, 1 linear and close the end knots, there's no curve on this NURBS curve or the CV curve, it's very faceted because ultimately I'm going to be converting to polygons, and that's what I want, so that's okay. Alright, so I've captured the inner ring of this jet engine, and what I want to do is grab this very same spline and duplicate it the length of this engine. Okay, so let's go to my side view, scoot this spline forward. I'm going to roughly put it right about there. I'll tilt it a little bit downstream. For now, I'm okay with it being flat. Control D, or over here, duplicate. The hotkey is Control D. So I copied it, and I'm going to scale it up. Hit the R key. Scale it up. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I'm kind of rotoscoping it to the image in the background there. I'm going to make all the splines down the length of this engine, and I'm going to pause the video while I do that because you don't need to see that. Okay, I'm back, and here are the splines that I created. I'll show you just in the side view how those line up. And also, if I go back to my perspective here, I have some internal ones as well. So this spline is going to be where the fan blades are. And then moving forward, we've got kind of the lip of the jet engine defined with some extra splines here. Alright, so I'll just select these things in order. It's super important that these splines are selected in sequential order. If you don't, then the software is going to throw up and make a pretty squirrely surface. So I'm holding the shift button down and I'm selecting these things in the order that I want this loft to occur. Come up here to surfaces, say loft, and it's really important that we talk about the options here. Alright, so I'll just start with the default options so that everyone's on the same page. Okay, I definitely, if I increase the section spans here, what I'm going to be doing is adding intermediate edge loops, which I don't want. So I'm going to keep that at 1, and I can show you what happens when we make it 2. I want it to be uniform. I could have this thing auto reverse. I'm kind of indifferent to it. It doesn't really matter. And surface degree, you can leave it on cubic. We could go right to polygons right now, but it's useful to kind of look at what the NURBS result is, and then we can always convert NURBS to polygons in a minute once we're done. Okay, so I got section spans at 2, and I hit apply. And notice it's black. Well, that's because the normals are flipped. If you look inside this thing, you can see the surface of the engine is proper on the inside, but the normals are flipped on the outside. So how do we fix that? Let me undo that loft. And remember, I started with the inside in my sequential selection, and then I went this way. Well, let's reverse that selection set. Let's go at the back here and go this way, and that will flip. It'll just be the opposite of the normals. Okay, so this will be my selection, and I've left this at section spans at 2. Hit apply, and there you go. The normals are flipped the right way. It doesn't really matter. I could always, once I go to polygons, flip them as well. I could also flip them as NURBS, but I just wanted you guys to make you aware of what happens and why it's happening. Okay, so it's too dense. I didn't really want. I just wanted to show what the section spans will do. So I'm going to undo that, make this 1, and then hit apply, and you can see it's the original density that I've been planning all along. Okay, so I'll close this window. Now, what happened when the surface swept around here? It tried to average between those edges. They were too close to each other. So I can move the NURBS out of the way here, and then I can grab these splines, and it's still parametric, so I can make some adjustments however I see fit. So I'll grab this one, And as it swoops across the edge there, it's trying to figure out the best shape. So I'll scale that up a little bit. And what I'll likely do is just wait till I'm in polygons and then just move these edges out. Okay, so let's see how it came out. If I select off of it, turn off wireframe. And let's go to just our viewport 2.0. There's my NURBS surface. Let's go up here to modify and center the pivot, and then let's convert this to polygons, and let's look at the options there as well. Alright, so first things first, NURBS automatically creates four-sided polygons, and so it would not make a lot of sense for me to then convert this to triangles. So let's go with quads. And the tessellation method, if I click on general, that's going to give me control of my U and my V isoparms, I guess you could say. So watch what happens. I'll make this 2 and let's say 8, and let's apply and then move it to the side to see what the result is. So here's my NURBS, here's the polygon result, and it did not capture all of the edges that I had in the NURBS, so I don't have enough information here. So I'm going to undo all that. And let's up 3, and let's just try, say, 5. Alright, so I changed my settings to U of 2 and V of 18. Watch what happens. The V number is the number of cross sections that I want, and the 2 number is how many longitudinal cross sections it'll put in per section. So watch what happens when I hit apply. And notice how when it was NURBS, it couldn't handle that close concentration of those splines, but now that it's polygons, it doesn't have any problem with that. And it also added in extra splines on the interior of that. Of course, now that it's edges and vertices and polygons, I can go in and get rid of those, but I'll worry about that later. So this is kind of the density I want. So this might be a good time to talk about why I bother doing this jet engine this way. I know plenty of modelers that would just create this front lip and kind of box model this whole thing. But the answer is it's not a symmetrical circle. It's not a cylinder. You can see how unusual the shape of this engine nacelle is. And it's man-made, or sorry, it's machine-made. We want to achieve the cleanliness and mathematical precision of a machine-made part. And so by going to NURBS and then NURBS to polys, or frankly, if you just went from spline straight to polys, you get that precision. No amount of fiddling with vertices and polygon modeling can give you the precision between these edges, and so that's the advantage to doing it, and your models will, the quality will show up in your models. So, you know, we still have some surface tension here. You can see that in this dark shadow, the shading here. So, you know, I can either go to edge, select that, and make this polygons, and we can, you know, we can add some additional edges. Insert edge loop tool, and then hit enter. And then, like I was saying earlier, I can just grab that edge, scoot it out, maybe put in another one if I felt so inclined. Might be kind of exceeding the density that I originally had in mind. Okay, so real quick, I'll just create a cylinder, drag that, let's knock that over 90 degrees. Let's move that into the center of this engine. And I will select that part of it and delete it, leaving me with just this plane. And then I can scale that up, and that is going to be the fan blades. Move that kind of approximately in the center. Then I would just grab so that when this thing rotates, I put a texture of fan blades on there. It rotates cleanly, and it kind of fakes the illusion of a symmetrical jet engine on the inside there. Alright, so that's the nacelle, and that's the fan blades. I can close that, I can delete that. Oops. Why don't I delete history before I do that? Delete by type history, and now I can delete that. And don't need these anymore. And I can put these on a background layer. And then hide it. And let's get our pivot into the center. Okay, so that's that. Now, what about the engine mount? And if I go back to my reference images, the mount is the part that connects the engine nacelle to the wing, and it can be made with, it should be made with the same process of creating splines and then lofting them along the length of that engine mount. Okay, so real quickly I'm just going to show that and how I would approach that. If I go to my front, don't really have a good view of the engine mount because it's kind of hidden between this engine and the wing. I'm kind of making it up. You know, I'm kind of looking at my reference images, and I'm just kind of making smart decisions about the width of it, the height of it. You know, it is art after all. So I can go and turn on my grid. I can turn on grid snap and create, let's go back to surfaces and create arc tools. Let's try a 3-point. There's that. Gotta fight this tool for a bit. I'm not too keen on that. I'm gonna hit escape. Let's go create arc tools 2-point. So create arc tools 2-point. There's one, there's the other. Hit enter. There, I can scale it down a little bit. So that's kind of the rough basis of the engine mount. Let's turn off that snap. There you go. And again, I'm just looking at my reference photos and just kind of scaling this thing to the size I think it needs to be. And if I go to my perspective view, that spline right there is going to be roughly right where this seam is. So I'll duplicate a couple forward, scale those down, another one, scale that down, okay, so this is an important thing. The edges on the side that I've already created here, these side edges, it would be smart of me to make sure that these splines line up with these edges here. And why is that? So that I can eventually weld the engine mount to this and have a single body geometry. That way that my light will bounce, the ambient occlusion will bounce, it'll be a more professional grade model than just interpenetrating the polygons. This is going to be a fairly visible seam, and so I interpenetrate polygons on the less visible stuff. So this would be an example of, I would definitely choose to do the work to make it look super clean. So again, there's the density that I'm shooting for. I'll scoot this one that way a little bit, push that back. Getting close. Alright. So, same scenario. Here's my splines. I need to shift collect them in sequence. And then surfaces, loft. And I've got some editing to do. I'll scoot that off. Grab this spline. Scale it up a little bit. Try to take some of these lumps out. Can you see how I'm doing that parametrically? Modify, convert, NURBS to polys. Let's look at the settings. Quads, 2 and 18. I don't want 18 all the way down. I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll make that 6. Apply. Oh, 2 is not enough, so let me undo that. Let's try 6 and 6. There's the polygons. So if you compare that to this, maybe 6 isn't enough. So I'll undo that, and let's try 8. I'll go 6 here and 8 here and apply. And that's the density. That's a pretty good density. Now let's try 8 and 8. There. Okay, so that's how I would make all these parts and to achieve a really clean machine look. Hope this helps, and happy modeling.